Good evening, everybody. It's time to drop the mic on a Huge Pop Entertainment with the host of the Pop God, Huge Pop. With us tonight is a retired American professional wrestler known for his work in the WWF, ECW, TNA. He's perhaps he's most recognized as one half of the tag team PG-13 with JC Ice. He's Wolfie D, Born Kelly, Warren Wolf. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. How you doing, my friend? Thank you again for jumping on here.
Yeah.
I know you're busy. I know you've done many podcasts. I hope not to repeat the same questions, but I think we've talked prior, man. You've been done so many of these. You've also had your own podcast, so it's like,
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
do, right? So
No, it's all good, man. Hopefully, your listeners will be different listeners and they can hear something that they haven't heard yet.
awesome, man. So thank you for the time. So I just like starting off, man. Can you tell us what it was like for Wolfie D as a fan of professional wrestling? Not a wrestler, but as a fan before you got into business.
Oh man. So I think I was about 8 years old before I even knew that wrestling existed, and then I found it, and it was Memphis wrestling, uh, which is what I grew up on, and then what I eventually made my name in, which you say WWF and WCW and ECW, but really Memphis is where we made our name. You know what I mean?
Huh?
And so anyway, yeah, I learned about wrestling, and I found Memphis wrestling, and I just fell in love with it, man. It was the larger than life characters. I always liked to draw. I was into comic books. I was into things like that, and uh, it just all kind of meshed together. I loved Kiss, and I had seen Kiss at a very young age, and man, it just all came together. Wrestling was like all these things rolled into one, and
Right.
it was just really cool. And that's what made me really like wrestling.
So you do comic books. Was Kiss one of those larger than life cartoon actors? I know they're singers and a great band.
Yeah,
I love Kiss, but
yeah.
is that what drew you to the book figures and stuff?
Um, I mean that's possible because I knew about Kiss probably before I swear my mom took me to a Kiss concert when I was like 5 years old. No shit. And so then comic books kind of came a little later than that, but I actually think I started drawing Kiss. I started drawing at a young age and started drawing Kiss, probably 6, 7, something like that. And then I found wrestling, and I'm not sure where the comic books came in the timeline, but the wrestling. My stepdad also had he was a big dude, man, and had a subscription to Muscle and Fitness. So bodybuilding magazines, comic books, they had all these muscular barbarian dudes, and then wrestling. And one of my favorite movies was Conan the Barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno, just all this stuff it was just muscle men and
Right.
things like that. So it just all made sense. But then the theatrics of Kiss and the theatrics of wrestling, I don't know, it just all rolled into one for me, man.
Wow. So you mentioned Memphis, the Memphis wrestling scene. Is
Yeah.
that where you were introduced to the legends like Jerry Lawler, Brian Christopher, and all those other guys? Is that where you met those guys?
Of course. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very lucky to get in there, man. Jeff Jarrett was pretty much the guy that got me and Jamie in as PG-13. That story's in the book about how that all came about. But yeah, Jeff's always been a huge factor in some of the breaks that I got in the business. But yeah, once we got there, of course, that's where I met Lawler and became good friends with pretty much all of them. I mean, I was lucky, man. You go into Memphis and a lot of guys come out of there with a sour taste in their mouth. They said they didn't get paid and all this. And at first, I didn't get paid really either. But then PG-13 had a great run. We also had a booker, Randy Hales, who believed in us and paid us decently. But then, like I said, a lot of guys come out of there mad. They were either like Jerry Jarrett liked them or Lawler liked him. Usually it wasn't both,
Right.
and you like they swapped up bookers. Sometimes it'd be Jerry, sometimes it'd be Lawler, sometimes it'd be Dutch, sometimes it'd be Bill Dundee. So me and Jamie were very lucky in the fact that pretty much all those guys I just named, it didn't matter who had the book, they kind of liked us and believed in us. But Randy Hales was the one that gave us the shove and took care of us.
So you mentioned JC Ice, and I know you. the stories in the book, but can you tell us how did PG come about to get together with JC Ice?
Yeah, we met both wrestling. I think I was probably I guess I was about 18 at the time. Uh maybe 17. But we met on an outlaw show in Hartsville, Tennessee. He was Jamie Dundee, and it just so happened we were wrestling each other, and we kind of meshed, and then we started seeing each other more often on the Kentucky, Tennessee outlaw circuit, and I started doing Wolfie D, um, and that's a whole big thing about how I got from what I was doing to that. But I started doing that, and then Chris Champion was booking a show, and he was like, "Man, you guys should do this together and quit wrestling against each other and do it as a tag team." And so that's just kind of how that evolved, and it went from there.
So, are there any good stories of the Memphis scene with Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett that you could share with us?
Oh man, there's a lot of them. So some of the because Lawler never really hung out with the boys, so I don't really have a lot of Lawler stories as far as outside the arena. You know what I mean? He
Yeah,
he
yeah.
never he never hung out with the guys. Uh, I do remember one night because Lawler could be moody at times, and I'm sure during this period he was especially moody. But it's when we moved from the Coliseum to what was that place called? The big Oh my God, the big one. They moved us from the Mid South Coliseum. It was right the dying days, right? And me and Brian and Jamie, oh man, Colorado Kid. There was a bunch of us that just loved to play hacky sack to kill
Okay.
time. We didn't have
Yeah.
cell phones back then, man. So to
Right.
kill time, that's what we would do. We'd find a place in the dressing room to play hacky sack. And so I remember Lawler walking by one night, and we're sitting there. He walks like directly in the middle of the circle, and he goes, "If you guys would care more about wrestling than you do hacky sack, we might have a house out there."
Ah,
And we were all like, "Oh, at that time, it's funny to look back on it, but he was just being moody, and I mean, hell, we were just passing time.
hacky
We
sack, man.
cared, we cared."
Yeah.
But I got a lot. There's a good Jeff stories in my book, and by the way, Jeff did. Uh, he did. I have two forwards in the book, and I have one afterward. The first forward is done by Father James Mitchell,
Okay.
who was my manager at TNA, and then Jeff did the second forward, and very appreciative of that one. And then the afterward is done by Nick Eugene Dinsmore. So
Okay.
I had some cool friends, man, help me out on the book, man. I really did.
So Eugene is the Eugene that I know from WWF, right?
Yeah,
WWE. Oh, you
yeah.
guys are good friends then, huh?
Yeah, I knew Nick when he first broke in, man, when he was OVW kid, man. And his afterward in the book is really good because he was a kid coming to the Louisville Gardens when PG-13 was, kind of on top and stuff. And he actually tells about that and how we kind of influenced him to get into the business. So that's a good and Nick's a good guy, man. He's a real good guy.
Man, that's a. I had fun watching him on the
Yeah.
show, so that was
Yeah.
fun. So that'd be a good guy to meet. But so let's transition into your TNA, you doctor. With your manager, yeah, the part of the disciples. Talk us
Yeah.
through about what that part of your career was like.
So there was just a time, it was in the late 90s, USWA had shut down Memphis. Uh, I was also involved in a real bad car accident, a rollover where I was ejected. Um, just a lot of stuff, man. And I just felt that the gimmick of PG-13 had run its course for a number of reasons. And again, that's one of those things I'd like people to read about because I go
Yeah.
really in depth about it. But there was timing, there was just, John Cena was coming on the scene. You had Public Enemy, even though PG-13 was the first ones to really have that look and that whole white, thug rapper gimmick. There was other people that were taking it to a national level before we got there. So then it was almost like some people that really didn't know the history were kind of like, "Oh, these guys are wannabes," and it frustrated me so bad because I was like, "No, no, wait, I did this first." And so anyway, I just felt like the gimmick had run its course, and I needed something different. And I'd been in that car wreck, and I really wanted to put on some size, got on some steroids. Not going to try to lie to anybody, because I wanted to recover quickly. Because I mean, I was ejected from the car, and or the SUV. Anyway, and so I just came up with this character. I came up with the PG thing, and I also came up with Slash. So like
Okay.
anywhere I've ever been, nobody's put a gimmick on me. I've always come up
Okay.
with it myself, and that goes back to, in my mind, goes back to drawing, comic books, all that stuff. I enjoyed those type of characters. So, and I also love the Road Warriors, and so Slash to me was my version of kind of a little Road Warrior or something. I could
Yeah.
pull off this gimmick now, because if I got bigger, obviously Wolfie D wasn't big enough to be an intimidating figure like Slash, but I put on some size and I could be a little bit more intimidating and work in a different style as well, as opposed to what I worked as PG-13. So I came up with this gimmick, and the first person that I pitched it to was Cornette. I called him up in OVW. Uh, Danny Davis was somebody that was an influence in my early career, and obviously, that was the thing that he started. Then Cornette had always been really, you know, he's the one that got me and Jamie the Nation Domination deal. So two people that liked me, I called and said, "Hey, this is what I got. This is what I'd like to try." So they brought me into OVW, and that's where Slash was actually first experimented with, really, before TNA. So I got to kind of mess with it there, and then Jeff Jarrett, was opening TNA, him and Jerry, and those are the two people that gave me my break in USWA. So there you go again. They gave me a shot in TNA.
So why not, right?
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Cornette. A lot of people on the social media, which I just can't stand. A lot of those people have their opinions about how horrible Jim Cornette is.
ah,
I
I love
just
Jim Cornette. Jim was always good to me. Uh, you know, Politically, he's got his opinions. I mean,
no.
and that's I whatever. If I agree with you, I do. If I don't, I don't. I don't care. Whatever. As a person, Jim Cornette was always good to me, and I think as a wrestling mind, he's absolutely one of the best, man. You know, you might could say that he didn't adapt or don't want to or whatever, but a lot of what he says I agree with, wrestling wise. So I got nothing but good to say. I used to stay at his house every week when I'd go up for OVW. I didn't have to pay for a hotel room. He offered his home to me. So, I ain't got nothing but good to say about him.
Good, good, good. I mean, you were involved in TNA, as Slash. You're involved with a feud with one of my favorite wrestlers in that area, which would
Uh,
be Raven. I sat in front of that TV going, when the hell is Raven going to come out?
yeah.
So talk us through some of your stories with against the Gathering and Raven. What was that like?
I mean, that was good stuff. I knew Scotty back from again Memphis days when he was Scotty Flamingo. Um, liked him then. And then in ECW, he turned into Raven, and honestly, what a switch. Even personality wise, I thought he was like a different person almost. Like his real personality seemed to be different. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. So knew him from ECW as well, and then in TNA he came in, and yeah, I mean it was great. Scotty's got a great mind. He's a great worker. And he had Julio De Niro and CM Punk with him. As far as the Gathering you were talking about, um, yeah, and Scotty was good to wear. There's a great story in there about the night that we shaved his head, and
Okay.
Mitchell cut Raven's head up pretty bad with the shears, and that was a whole schmoz in the back. But anyway, again, that's when I'd like for people to buy the book and read it. But I've always, there was that moment that night. I did not like him, but then before and after, I've always liked Raven. He's a good dude, man. He's always been good to me. We that night was just a bit of uh, a disagreement and a wild thing, and I mean I understand why everybody's emotions were high that night.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So we're gonna go back to the Nation of Domination. You were, you were like the rap god for that group. You like were
Yeah.
rapping. So what was that like to rap with those dudes or rap for those dudes and all that? What was that like? You got
So
Farouk, you got all them.
yeah, so Cornette calls me up, man, and he's like, "Hey, we got a spot for you," and kind of tells me what the deal was, and so I need you to write a rap. It gave me just kind of the bullet points on what it needs to be about, and so I wrote the rap, and then they sent us money to go because he said, "I need you to look like PG-13, but I need you to look a little different," sort of deal. And so basically, we went out in Memphis, like just some of the flea markets and shit like that, and bought those outfits there. Gold chains, gold teeth,
Yeah.
fake, all of it. But they sent us the money for all that. And then, so once I wrote the rap, he said, "Okay, we're gonna, send you. We're gonna fly you up and need you to come to the office, Titan Towers at the time in Connecticut." And we'll get you with Jim Johnson and we'll record the rap. Great story about that. That was so funny. Oh my God, that was hilarious. But yeah, so we go up there, we record the rap, and they give us Jim gives us Jim Johnson, not Cornette, gives us a cassette tape of the instrumental of that. We are the nation of domination, and some people may or may not know this, but when you even when we were gone, when you hear that we are the nation of domination, that's actually just me and Jamie saying it, and
Really?
they just looped our voices and deepened it and all this kind of stuff and made it sound like a crowd of people. But it's actually just me and Jamie saying that.
Oh,
Yeah. So anyway, they gave us this cassette tape, and while we're on the road in Memphis before the debut in '96 Survivor Series, we're going up and down the road, kicking it back and forth, rehearsing the rap, blah blah blah, and then we show up for Survivor Series '96 and Vince is at the bottom of the ramp, and they say, "Come up here for rehearsals." And again, that's something we do. Like, well, rehearsal? What the fuck? You don't do that in Memphis. But anyway, so that went. It went okay, but it was funny. It was the most embarrassing thing to do in front of Vince the first time because it didn't go perfect. I'll just say that.
so Vince, you mentioned Vince, man.
Yeah.
So were you on good terms with Vince, or was he as bad as the documentaries make it sound?
I didn't honestly. As our position in the nation didn't put us in a lot of direct contact with Vince. Uh, Ron Simmons was the guy, you know what I mean? Him,
Yeah.
Crush, Savio, those guys would go to Vince, find out what we were doing. Then they'd come to us, tell us what we were doing. And we did have, they trusted us because they knew, you know, we had been in the business. We were from Memphis. We would be, if we were going to do something, we'd be on time, we'd be on cue, all that kind of stuff. So they give us a little bit of creative freedom if we wanted to say, "Hey," they're going, "Hey, at the end, we're going to do this. You guys feed in." "Oh yeah, well, let's do it this way." They give us that. Uh, and yes, there was like one time where I shot something to Vince, and ended up being pretty cool. Where I dove in the back of a limo that was moving, and yeah, so that was pretty cool. But they gave us a little bit of creative freedom. But just as far as like dealing with him, I didn't really have to deal with him directly. It was all a lot of indirect dealings with that.
So now you mentioned Memphis wrestling all the time. So I'm understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong from what you've been talking about. Memphis wrestling was respected by lots of promotions around the United States.
Well, I
They
mean,
knew what they were going to get. I guess is that what you're saying?
yeah, and I mean, because man, dude, everybody pretty much that was anybody had been through Memphis, especially like in the '70s and '80s. Yes, it died in the '90s, the late '90s, but still, we were doing good stuff there. And for the time period, I mean, we were drawing good. We kind of resurrected the territory that was really dying in the early '90s. But yeah, anybody had been through Memphis. Like I said, especially in the '80s, man. Hogan, everybody. I mean, so and you kind of you cut your teeth there. I think that's the saying. You cut your
Yeah,
teeth
yeah.
there, man, because you wrestled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Most of the time Thursday and Friday, for sure Saturday morning on TV, and then Saturday night in Nashville, and you was usually off on Sunday, so you're working almost every day of the week, twice on Saturday. That's how you learn. That's why they sent a lot of guys to Puerto Rico too, because that was another place where you could work almost every night of the week, and that's how you learn. And you Memphis always had guys, even the underneath guys could work, and so it wasn't like, you know, and this is not to knock independent wrestling, but a lot of times, and I'm talking about today's age, a lot of times you have guys that are inexperienced versus inexperienced, and so who's going to teach who there? It's the blind leading the blind. We had the luxury of having guys that have been in the business 15, 20 years, that we were going out there and wrestling 6 nights a week. So that's just an advantage of Memphis, and the schedule and all that. Yeah, it was a rough schedule. A lot of times you weren't making great money, but it was for love of the game. And if you wanted to learn and to advance your craft and advance in the business, I mean, Memphis was one of the places to be. It was the last territory to die. It was the last one to go out of business. Everybody else went out of business. Memphis was still going. That to me, that says a lot. I mean,
So, what is your opinion? You got the territories, right?
yeah.
Memphis is the last territory compared to what is happening right now in today's wrestling business. Do you think the wrestling business today could benefit going back to territories?
I mean, it will never go back, but at the same time, looks to me like, I mean, other than, okay, WWE's got the world covered at this point. Uh, AEW seems to be, and I don't really watch that. I do watch some WWE, but AEW just seems to be like, it's got a lot of money and stuff, but I see clips and things where, I don't know, maybe they're not wrestling enough. Back to what I was saying, there seems to be a lot of mistakes being made on a huge stage that they've got to offer. Um, I feel like there are some independent stuff that I see, and this is all social media stuff. I mean, that's where you see it all now. I mean, there's really nowhere else to see it. But I feel like there's some stuff that's drawn, and they seem to be doing pretty well, man. But it'll never go back to the territories. I don't think. I don't see how it could. But you do have some small independent promotions that run kind of like a little local area. They might not run the same town once a month or whatever, but they're kind of in the area, so maybe the territory shrunk down a little bit. uh I mean, tough question to really explain how I feel about it, man. I just don't
Okay.
think it would 100% ever go back to that, but in a sense I think wrestling is popular enough now again to where you do have these pockets of independent wrestling, um, that are not on the scale of what the territories were, but because times have changed and the media has changed, it's internet. You can put anybody on TV now. Me and you are on kind of TV right now. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right,
It's
absolutely.
like you don't have to. I felt like, back when we got our break in '93, that was a big deal. There wasn't internet. You couldn't just record something and put it on the internet. In order to be
Right.
on TV and be seen, someone had to hire you and put you on there. That made it more special. Uh, so yeah, there's just a difference, man. The time frame is so different now, and the technology and society and everything is just so different. It's like comparing apples to oranges, in my opinion.
Yeah. So independent wrestling, you talk about that, and I live in the Panhandle of Florida, so I my first experience with independent wrestling was in Panama City
Hmm.
when I checked out Extreme Impact Wrestling, and I see you're wearing a Tennessee Titans, Tennessee Titans mug behind you, wearing a Tennessee Vols shirt behind you, and one of the guys that made me fall in love with independent wrestling is a guy from Tennessee, a legend of I think he's a big guy in the business of independence. He's been doing it a while. Damian Wayne,
Okay, yeah, I know him.
and dude, man, the stuff that they do, that he does, anyways, it
Mhm.
makes you almost feel so like it's right there, it's real, you know. And
Yeah, he's old school without, because I think he got into the business later than he probably would have liked, as to where it might have stopped him from going further than he did. And I appreciate his work. I like him as a person. But yeah, he's got an old school mind. And he's good, man. He's good. I'm not sure if I've ever wrestled him. I know him well, but I don't know if I've ever wrestled him. I might have, and just can't remember. But yeah, man, Damien's good, man, and he completely uses that old school mentality.
100%. So, in that locker room of the Independence, and maybe even in the when at TNA when you were there,
Mhm.
was brotherhood a big thing and a big deal for you guys?
Man, brotherhood, especially back in Memphis days, man, was really a thing. But then also, it's kind of a double-edged sword with wrestling, man. And I'm not sure what the climate is in the locker rooms these days. I'd be wrong by trying to judge it because I haven't been in one religiously enough to know anymore. But it's like a double-edged sword, man. Wrestling could be very cutthroat, but then also your boys are your boys. But
Right.
again, in the grand scheme of things, that's the world, isn't it? I mean,
Yep. No,
we're
you're
going to
yeah.
take care of our boys, and but in wrestling, see, you're trying to because it's not a team sport, so you're trying to get that spot that next guy has,
Yep.
you
Yep.
and
So
if it means
looking
telling on somebody for doing something or even making shit up,
right, no, right,
people
right.
that do it, people
Yep.
that do it.
Yep. Yep. So looking back at your career, what was the most thing you're most proud of?
Man, so again, I mean, I've done some cool things. I worked for pretty much every company that was a big company in my time frame. Uh, you know, and did good with it. May not have been a world champion everywhere, but uh, we were known. We made a name for ourselves, and then I think I made a name for myself again in TNA, showing that I could adapt and change with the times and even change my gimmick. And a lot of people didn't even know that was me and still don't. When they get, I mean, I'm serious, man. To this day, I still have people going, I just found out that Wolfie D was Slash. And so that's funny. But I guess, man, one of my proudest moments is knowing that, like, me and Jamie held the Memphis tag team titles 15 times together, 16 times independently, which is by far um, the only people that held it more times than us was the Fabulous Ones. And so that's pretty cool. The wrestling that I grew up on, I get to say that, hey, a lot of people consider me one of the best tag teams to ever do it in that territory. Also, last year we got inducted into the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame, which some people can say, "Oh, that's bullshit. That don't mean anything." Well, it does to me. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's you asked me what I'm proud of. Those are a couple things I'm proud of. There's my USWA tag team belt, and that'll
That's
go to the
why I
grave
was
with
going to
me.
ask the next question. I was going to ask, what did it feel like to get inducted into a Hall of Fame? I don't get, you said it. Who gives a shit if it's Memphis, WWE,
Yeah,
TNA? You did something and you got rewarded for it and you got recognized for it. They ought to
yeah,
be, yeah. So that's, you ought to
yeah.
be
I mean,
proud of that.
it absolutely meant a lot to me, man. And I got my family there. Like, my kids don't live in the same towns and stuff, and plus it was all the way in Jackson, Tennessee, and I had my high school buddy there, my kids, just it meant a lot to me, man. It really did, to finally be recognized in that fashion, man. And then
Yeah,
the people that were being inducted with us and just on the show, uh, very humbling to be a part of that and to be a part of the names that were on it and that are in the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's
right.
like, damn, that's some good company and that's cool, you know?
Yeah, you ought to be proud of that. So, who was your favorite opponents to tag team against?
Man, that's a tough question because there's a few of those for different reasons. Like, Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert were probably our first big money feud where people really started believing in us. The houses started coming up, and you could tell we went from, when we got hired, we were a heel tag team that was, undercard, ha ha, a lot of funny stuff and then at that point, we're trying to make people believe that we can whoop these guys' asses. And so that was our first big feud. I thought we had really, really good matches with the Rock and Roll. They put us over in like a big a match where it was kind of billed as the team of the 90s versus the team of the 80s, and they put us over. It was like a super card show, and that really did something for us. I mean, the Eliminators, we had good matches with them, and that, there's been a lot, man. But I mean, I guess if I have to narrow it down, man, it's gonna be like a tie between Rock and Roll and Tommy and Doug, just for the meaning of it all, of what that meant to our careers to get us to that Hall of Fame status,
Right. So do you and JC still talk?
Unfortunately, we do not. I have not spoken to him since the Hall of Fame, which was roughly a year ago. And there's a story about that in the book. I miss Jamie. I love Jamie to death, but yeah.
All right, I'll read the book, man. I got to get that book, man. You answer these questions, and you're doing a great job. But you're like, it's in the book, and I'm like, So I appreciate that. I appreciate that a whole lot. But let me see. So you owned a professional wrestling school, am I right?
I ran one. I wouldn't know if I call it, I owned it. I did have a LLC for it and everything, but I didn't own the building. I didn't own the ring, but I had somebody letting me do that, and it was doing good for a minute, man. The thing that made me want to do that was back in the mid '90s. I think Tony Falk, I think, was running the USWA school, and that was in Nashville. It was either at the fairgrounds where we ran, or it was at Jerry Jarrett's house, depending on what the week was and if they had the flea market at the fairgrounds. Blah blah blah. Long story short is Tony, for some reason, couldn't do it, didn't want to do it, something no more, and so I took over. So I figured out that I was pretty good. One of my first students, man, was James Storm.
Really?
So yeah, there's a funny story about that. But anyway, so that's what made me realize I was kind of good, because man, it's one thing to be good in the ring, but to be able to relay it and teach it to other people is a totally different thing. And I figured out that I was pretty good at that. I was pretty good at being able to teach it. So yeah, so I started this wrestling school, Wolfie D's House of Champions, and it was doing good. And then the guy, it was an independent place, and he lost his building or something, so I had to move the town, which wasn't that far, basically still Nashville, but other ends of it. And then had domestic issues, no trouble or anything, just domestic issues with the woman. And so I left town and moved to Knoxville when this was in Nashville. And so I tried to let somebody else run it for me, because it was so much for me to go back and forth a couple of days a week, traveling from Nashville to Knoxville. It's just like too much. So I was trying to let somebody else do it a little bit for me. And it said Wolfie D's House of Champions, not Chris Michaels. That's who it was. Chris Michaels' House of Champions. So attendance started dropping off, and then I just kind of said, screw it, man. Got away from it.
So I feel like I'm on an audition with this next question, man. You ran a podcast. And I
Yeah.
think we've texted about it. You don't do that no more, am I right?
Right.
So what got you into it and what got you out of it? Because I'm like
Uh,
in it and I love it, but
yeah.
sometimes I get so frustrated
Yeah.
because it's a lot of
So,
work.
uh, my co-host on that show called me up, or emailed me through Facebook, I think it was, and he's like, "Hey, my name is Jimmy Street. I don't know if you remember me," and I did. He was a manager on the independent Nashville scene, so I'd met him through there. And so I remembered who he was, and he was like, "Hey, man, I just wonder if I was going to do a podcast." And I'd never listened to a podcast a day in my life. And so he's like, I want to do a podcast, man. I'd really like to just talk about your career and blah, blah, blah. And so I was open to it. I was like, yeah, that's okay, sure. And so we started doing it. And at first it was just me talking about my career, really. And then it blossomed into me saying, hey, we need to get some guests on here. And then it went on once a week for 4 years. And I started running out of friends and favors, man. Because seriously, it's like, yeah, I can get people. I know people, but some of these people I don't know, and they're going to charge X amount of money, and we weren't making much money, hardly any, and so it just kind of became a thing where, yeah, it was kind of fun, and I was connecting with old friends and actually getting some people on that I'd never crossed paths with, but because when you're one of the boys, you're one of the boys type thing, I made some friends on there that I'd never even crossed paths with. But anyway, then at the end, man, it was one of those things, unfortunate misunderstanding, disagreement type of deal. Not really sure how else to put that without. I'm not here to bury anybody. Brother can be what he wants to be, man. But I thought he was my friend. It turned out I don't think he was. But anyway, is what it is.
No, man. Hey, I'm just asking a podcast to a friend of mine. I
Yeah.
call you a friend. I hope that's okay.
Hey, and I'll be honest, man. The guy was good at what he did. He edited. He did all that stuff, man. All I did was talk and get guests. That was really my role in the thing, and use my name to promote it. Uh, you know, but as far as editing and all that kind of stuff, brother put some time and work into it, man. And he did a good job for what he was doing.
Awesome, man. So I would be open to any kind of feedback you ever want to give me after the show. You want to give me some feedback? I'm open to that. What advice would you give young wrestlers hoping to get into the business? That
Man, be open-minded, man, and listen to the veterans, because I really feel like, and this is a society thing, in my opinion, man. I think younger folks don't want to listen to people that have been there, done that. They think they know everything, man. And not to say that that's not always been kind of a deal where young people think they're smarter than the other. I I might have gone against some advice I was given in the past, but I always respected the advice. And I think there's a difference now. They think that we don't know what we're talking about. They really don't. And don't even want to hear it, don't want to listen to it, don't want to try it. But I think that was the difference in my generation. I think I did. And I'm talking about wrestling and life, but more so wrestling. I listened, and I also obeyed what was instructed to me by the people that had been there longer than I had. And I just think that's a thing, man. And I'm not saying every younger guy does this, but I'm saying that would be my advice: is to be sure you listen to the people that have done it more times than you have. I don't care how many flips you can do
right?
before you hit the ground. Please listen to the guys that have been there and done that.
Yeah. There's not many that do that. I
Yeah, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I could be
I've
wrong.
heard. Again, I follow the XIW, and there's veterans like Damian Wayne in the back, and Chase Stevens is in the back with them a lot, and some of these guys don't give two shits about what these veterans are telling them, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
You know? So
Right.
I had the opportunity. I was at a wrestling convention. There's a young guy that Austin Aries was at my table, and this
Hmm.
kid came over and he picked Austin Aries' brain, and Austin said the same after the kid left. Austin said the same thing as you said. It's one thing asking, did he listen, and is he going to put the
Did
work
he
in?
did he process what I just said?
Did he? Exactly. That's the same conversation Austin Aries and I had.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah. So we're gonna transition into why I wanted to do this in the first place, and why we waited until September. So we've been talking since February.
Yeah.
Mentioned the book, and one of your questions, one of your things you wanted me to do is wait until the book was released,
Yeah.
and it's released. So fans out there, we're talking to Wolfie D. His book is A Tale of Two Wolves. He explores his time in professional wrestling, both the rapper Wolfie D and the goth style character Slash in that book, and
Yeah.
much more, I'm sure.
And just the best way to get it is on Amazon. And There's actually a lot of books because the name of that came from an old it's like a Indian story about two wolves and which one do you feed. Look it up. But anyway, so if you type in A Tale of Two Wolves by Wolfie D, it'll take you straight to it. Pretty easy to find. We've done good on there so far, man. And I hope everybody reads it because it's a very deep dive into not just the wrestling stories, but to the things that shape me, to the person and to the struggles. There's been a lot, man. So it's a very honest, a very raw book. I also think that, even if somebody were to read this that didn't know who the hell I was, I think they would go, that's a pretty good read. And because I think we did a good job with it. I had a guy named Gene Jackson who was helped me put it together, kind of like the ghostwriter. But I also wrote a lot myself, believe that. Um, but I dictated a lot to him, and he structured it for me. Um, it's a good book, man. It's a good book. I really think it is. Everybody that's read it so far, that's gave me feedback, has been positive so far. I'm sure there'll be some negative out there somewhere, but yeah, like I said, it was emotional to write it because it takes you back to some things you may not want to think about. Because like I said, I'm going. It's very raw. I'm not trying to hide anything. It's not a book where I try to bury everybody either. It's not. That's not my platform. If anything, I bury myself. But yeah, it's a very raw look at me from the inside out.
Wow. So, Michael, I have just a couple questions on that. What was the most challenging part of revisiting your career to write this book?
Some of the mistakes I made, when I really, it's kind of one of those things where you go, when I say that out loud, it sounds a little different. Well, when you write it down, it does too. And you look back and go, man, because I mean, do I have some regrets? Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I could have done some things differently and I could be in a totally different situation right now. But at the same time, they say everything happens for a reason, I'm not sure what those reasons are sometimes, but yeah, that's one of the hardest things, just looking at it and going, damn, yeah. And especially some of the things that I'm talking about happened when I was in my early 20s, and here I am fixing to be 52. So I look at it different than that 21-year-old did, obviously.
Right, 100%. So, in the business of professional wrestling, right? You're out there telling stories.
hmm
Was it difficult to transition from the wrestler telling stories in the ring to telling your story in this book?
Not so much, man. I mean, obviously you want to make it I think as a wrestler, you got to be to make it, you got to be entertaining anyway. And so, I guess writing a book, I don't want to just write down facts. I want people to read this. I want them to feel the emotions of all of it. I sent one of the chapters to one of my good friends, Road Dog, and I sent the whole chapter to him. And he sent back to me, he said, "Man, I cried 3 times reading that." So I want people to feel the emotion. I want them to laugh because I think there's stuff in there that's funny. I think there's stuff in there that's sad. I think there's serious. I think it goes through all of it, man. I really do. And that's the way I wanted it to be. And like I said, as a wrestler, I should be entertaining, and I want my book to be entertaining. I want it to be, like a movie in words, and I think that's what a book is supposed to be, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Uh, Hell, some of my shit is crazier than fiction. So,
Well, I read some stuff. I mean, you Google stuff, right, to prepare for this, and
mhm.
I want to ask this, but I don't. But
Yeah,
you went through some difficult stuff, not
yeah,
even in the ring.
yeah, yeah. I
Your
did.
mom, the story about your mom,
Yeah, yeah,
all that gritty, all that stuff, that difficult personal stuff.
yeah.
To
And a lot of
relive
that,
that.
man, it's surprising that that's on Google, because a lot of that I never talked about before, man, until the book. So I guess it don't take long for it to get out there. But
I mean,
uh, yeah,
wow.
man,
I
there
was
was,
floored. I was like, holy crap.
yeah, man. That's why I say it's an open. very raw and honest thing. And, you know, in that chapter, I also put, hey, I'm not telling this because I want to be hateful, but I also want everybody to know, you know, you ask because I've been asked to write a book forever. So if I'm going to write it, I'm gonna tell it all. I love my mom. And my mom was good to me, but you know, everybody goes through their shit, man.
Yeah, same. Yeah, yeah.
We all got our demons. We all got our stories. We all got some shit that we'll take to our grave. And I didn't put everything in the book.
I mean, I I can't wait to read the book. I can't wait to read stuff about Slash, about JC Ice, about Nation of Domination, all that stuff. You know, even your personal stories, because I think working with foster care and foster kids, you know, you hear stories all the time, and
Oh yeah,
I wish I was as brave to share some of my stories.
yeah, yeah.
To me, for you to share your stories in that book, man, that's honorable, that's real, and I can't wait to read it, man. I can't
Some
wait.
people will probably call me an asshole for doing it, but I don't see it that way. I just see it as,
No.
hey, this is my story, and if you're gonna hear my story, you're gonna hear pretty much everything. That's the
So
way I look at it.
I imagine in the book you talk about the different backstage cultures from USWA to WWE, WWF to TNA. Was there a drastic difference between those promotions, or was it is backstage backstage?
Nah, it depends on who's running and stuff. I mean, like ECW was way different than say Memphis. Uh, TNA was different in its own way. Obviously, you know, WWE and shit was different. And it depends on what time frame it was too, man. Like TNA that I started in when from show number 1 to somewhere around 2004 was way different than when I went back twice for one show each time. It was like 2012 I went back for a pay-per-view. That was miserable, a miserable dressing room. And then they brought me back for Slammiversary in 2020, uh either one or two, I can't remember. And that was a great atmosphere. So it just kind of depends on time, place, all that kind of stuff.
So we talked about your growing up and your what drawing comics and Kiss. How did that passion for character and visual spectacle translate into your writing style? So how did that experience with as a younger guy drawing your comic books and all that stuff? How did that help you translate into writing this book?
Huh. Um Again, I think that just goes back to, I mean, okay, so I got my job basically in Memphis by being able to write a rap and be a rapper, which I wasn't, but I was able to kind of work my way through it. Uh,
Yeah.
Wrote another one for them, wrote the one for WWE. I even wrote another one by myself later on that's on Apple Music. Uh, and again, being able to draw, being an entertainer, I think that's all kind of crunched into one thing. You know, if you're creative, you're creative. And I guess writing a book is along those lines of, like I said, of being able to put a story in a book format and make it a little bit entertaining. And like I said, a lot of this now I dictated, uh, and just like I am to you. It's like if you would have recorded me for how many hours it takes to read this book, it would have come out just kind of like I'm saying it now. Some laughs. You know, I haven't gone through any of the bad stuff with you or the hard times with you, but I'll be honest with you. There was times where in this book where I was I think I may have had some tears welled up in my eyes. I'm not going to say they fell out, and I'm not saying that because I'm a tough guy, but I think I had some tears well up my eyes. So if I can't feel it, then you ain't gonna feel it as a reader. And like I said, I'm no master book writer suddenly, but I just think um, art is art and entertainment, all kind of one thing.
So your experience with as Slash with the disciples of the Nation of Domination, bloody, hardcore. Are you a big fan of that type of wrestling? And do you think it is way too much in AEW with John Moxley and doing that?
I mean, listen. Okay, so people ask me, when you went to ECW, man, was it crazy? Was it wild? I don't even think I ever got hit with a chair in ECW, man. It just depended on where you were in the card. Not that wasn't our deal. That wasn't our role in ECW. Although, they are known for that. But I did crazier shit in Memphis. We did. It wasn't called hardcore then, but we did some wild shit. TNA, same thing. I probably did even wilder shit in TNA than I did in Memphis. So I think it's just they keep setting the bar higher, and we talked about this hell back in the '90s of where do we go from here? How are you going to top this? How are you going to do that? And then again, what I was saying of all you gotta do is put it on the internet. I see tons of people doing stupid shit that gets millions of views. And here's the thing: you might see that one bump out of that match that got a million views, but I guarantee if you watch the rest of the match, it was probably fucking terrible. And that's just the difference, man. I mean, and as far as AEW and what Moxley's doing. I mean, hey, if he's getting paid, whatever, man. I can't be one to sit here and knock. I used to get color. We used to call it. It's a derogatory statement, but what it used to be called was being queer for the blade. If you were somebody that got color a lot, it meant you liked it. You were queer for the blade, and probably some people would categorize me as that because I did get a lot of color, and some of the reason though was Jamie didn't want to do it, and I would not mind. And then in TNA, it'd be like Brian wouldn't want to do it, Brian Lee, and then I wouldn't mind, and I just never really minded about it too much. So I can't really sit here and go, well, he's doing too much. I mean, if he's probably getting paid more than I was. I guarantee you he is, but. Hey, I mean, there is some stuff that I look at and go, but then I also, at 52 years old, I look at, I think if somebody hit me with a chair right now, and I'm like, oh, absolutely not, as to where before in life that wouldn't have mattered. But now I'm like, oh, absolutely not. Don't touch me.
All right, I have to ask the question. You brought up chair and you said it hurt.
Yeah.
So if you had to get hit by a chair or step on Legos, what would you prefer?
uh, Barefooted.
Yeah.
Legos would hurt. But see, here's where I'm weird too. When it comes to chairs, okay, they're not allowed to hit in the head no more. That's the thing that I don't, unless they reinstated it. There was a thing in WWE where for years you couldn't get hit in the head no more. But I hated when somebody would hit me in the back with a chair because it stung so bad. I would rather you hit me in the head because there was a different feeling to me. It didn't hurt as bad to me, but it also causes concussions and CTE. So yeah, I don't know. I'm weird on that, man. I don't know. I don't know if I'd rather get hit in the head with a chair. I'd definitely rather not get hit on the back than a Lego. Yeah, Legos do hurt though.
All right. All right. Paul Heyman. You had experience with that, obviously. How was that experience?
Okay, so Tracy Smothers and Chris Candido were kind of our guys there that got us in and all that kind of stuff. And didn't have a lot of direct dealings with him. Always got word from somebody else what they needed us to do. We were just there to do our jobs for the weekend. Um, yeah, I didn't really have a lot of dealings with him.
Okay. I have two last questions. We're coming up on an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. So I have two last questions. What message do you hope the wrestling fans that who followed your career, as well as the new readers, will take away from reading your book?
Hmm. Oh man, I guess just like the title, man, because in life and in the wrestling business, be careful of which wolf you feed. And like I said, that's a Native American story. There's a good wolf in all of us, and there's a bad wolf in all of us, and you got to be careful of which one you feed. Sometimes we feed both of them, but I think it really depends on which one you feed more of. Um, we all gonna make some mistakes. Do you learn from them? Hell, I was a tough, very hard learner, and I wouldn't say that I'm 100%, perfect these days. I'm not. I don't think any of us are. I struggle with that sometimes of going, man, have I? have I learned from shit? Am I a better person? I think I am, but are any of us ever 100% perfect? I don't think that's a thing. Um, so I can do the best I can every day and try to be the best person I can be. But, whether person A and person B believes that about me, I don't know. I don't know. And that's really not up to me, you know.
Well, one more question popped in my head. I'm sorry, but
Uh,
I didn't ask this question. I normally ask. You got to have with the people you mentioned throughout this interview. You got to have one at least a rib or a road story you can share.
oh man, some of those were brutal. Let me think for a minute on something that I haven't really talked about. Uh, Man, that's a tough question because some stuff like that, man, is like seriously, I can't. It's not even in the book, because of the shit that people used to do to each other. God, and then I just if it's any lighter than that, I almost can't think of them. You kind of put me on the spot with that one, man.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't apologize. I can't really think of anything right this second that was just off the wall crazy like that. And I don't want to disappoint if I give you a story. So I'm gonna have to say I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Was there? Can you name a name? Was there a ribber that was like, oh my,
Man,
head of
they
the?
weren't. They were. Man, they weren't as bad during my time, man. And I didn't get ribbed that bad by anybody. Tommy Rich, but it's like a love hate with me and him. Like I love Tommy, and I think he loves me deep down inside. But he would do shit, but it wasn't like really bad, because we
Okay,
worked together all the time, and
yeah.
I rode with them and things like that. But just give me a fucking hard time more than anything. Not
All
really
right,
so much
fair,
ribs, but
fair.
yeah.
So, considering your highs and lows documented in your book, I'm sure that you lived the highs and lows. What is the biggest lesson you, as the writer, as a professional wrestler, learned about life and the wrestling industry as you're writing this book?
Oh, take advantage of your opportunities, man. Take advantage of your opportunities, and yeah, that's really my takeaway from it. Take advantage because, like I said, I said it a few minutes ago. I have some regrets. I did some things wrong. If I could turn back the clock, there's some key decisions that I would have done differently. Some key moments that I would have done differently. Um, but I can't do that. So that's not something you could dwell on. It's just, man, take advantage of your opportunities, make the most of them, and you know, yeah.
All right. So we've been spending the last hour talking to Wolfie D, Huge Pipe Entertainment. We talked about his book. We talked about his career. His book is called Tale of Two Wolves. You can get it on Amazon. Wolfie D, can you tell us can you tell the fans where they can get your merch, where they can find you, maybe on social
I
media?
got a really just on Facebook. You can find me under Warren Wolf. It'll say Wolfie D next to it. And I sell some stuff on there sometimes. I also have a store on T Public, TEE Public. So you can buy T-shirts, coffee mugs, whatever. But it's some of my drawings, designs, and you can get them on, like I said, T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. I mean, a lot of stuff, man. So I got a little store on there that I upload artwork to every now and then. But other than that, man, go buy the book.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for hanging out with you. Wolfie D, like I said, I'm going to play an outro music. Don't go nowhere. I'd like to ask you a couple questions off camera.
Yeah,
I appreciate you, Wolfie D. Again, fans, he's
thank you.
part of PG-13 with JC Ice. He's been Slash. He rapped for Nation of Domination. Great stories. If you didn't hear this live, please check us out on YouTube at Huge Pop Wrestling. Follow Wolfie D at Warren Wolf on Facebook. Make sure you look up the Tale of Two Wolf on Amazon. Wolfie D author, or I'm Warren Wolf author. And get
Under
the book.
Wolfie D author. You're right, Wolfie D
Wolfie
author.
D, get that
Yep.
book. And thank you guys for checking in with Huge Pop Wrestling. As we always say, we're for life.